Where are you going to be different? What's going to be different?
Well, I think as it relates to what's different, is I think it's experience that's different. With all due respect to my colleagues here at the table, I really do think being in business, or being a doctor or a rancher or a teacher, and going back to Congress matters. I mean, you know, real world experience, meeting payrolls, creating jobs, knowing the difference knowing the difference between signing a check and just endorsing a check, I think that matters. And I think we need to have some people back there who have some conviction and resolve to go back and do the right things. I mean, if things were so great across the board, here in Colorado, if our Republican Party was doing great, I'd stay in business. I love being in business. But the fact is that there's a vacuum and a void going on, and so that's what I want to step up and do.
Right. What's different from you than who's in there right now? What are we going to see? Let's go to Mike.
First of all, I want to say that, and I think that business experience is very important. And I started a business that wasn't a family business. I started it from scratch when I came back home from the Marine Corps the first time, and took my savings and put it down on a small business idea and owned that business for 17 years until I sold it shortly after becoming the state treasurer. I think what I admire most about Tom Tancredo, first of all, was when the Republican establishment in Washington ceased to govern by the conservative values that got them elected. Tom Tancredo had the guts to stand up against them, and I think that that's very important to remember. You know, my first assignment in the military, I was doing border security in the United States Army, 1st Army Division, between the border of then West Germany and Czechoslovakia. And it is amazing to me that this country would expend such resources in securing another country's border, and yet not be willing to secure its own border. And Tom Tancredo brought that issue to the national spotlight. Sometimes he did it in a way that maybe you know, wasn't the most elegant way, which was Tom Tancredo's style, but he got his point across, and people remembered it.
So what I'm trying to get to is what would be different? I know
the emphasis
what
has to be there. I mean, when I was in Iraq, I worked on the political process of trying to move and trying to establish a constitutional elected government in Iraq with enough stability that we could withdraw from this country. And I think that, first of all, I admire Senator Ward's experience in Iraq. I think it was extraordinary that he stepped down and willing to go, as I did in the first Gulf War, as I was willing to do as state treasurer, and we share paths in the United States Marine Corps. You know, but I think that, I disagree with him probably, I think that there is a picture on the box for Iraq by this administration. And I don't agree with the whole picture on the box. It's two phases. One is the security phase, which is the Marines and soldiers on the ground, the tactical day-to-day counterinsurgency operations that is fluid and continually changing. But then the other one is the political, and I think we're too fixated on creating the Iraqis in our own image. And having worked directly with the Iraqi people on not only their elections, but on the establishment of interim local governments along the Western Euphrates Valley, you know, they are different, and we need to take that into account. And if we do that, if we realize those differences, we can move this political process forward faster and bring this war to a just conclusion that is in our national security interest to do.
Bring it over here. Gentlemen, Tom, we all love Tom. We had great times with Tom. What would you be different than Tom?
That's an easy question, John. I'm not running to clone our current congressman. I'm running because there are issues I think we need to deal with. Immigration is an important issue, and we need to deal with it, but I wish we would put it in the context of national security, because we really have to look at our borders from a national security standpoint. We're probably the only country on earth that allows our borders to be as open as they are, or one of the few, and certainly probably the most developed country on earth that has borders as open and unfortunately open as they are. But I do think we should put border security and immigration reform in a national security context, not just in the context of immigration reform narrowly. And where I will be different is I will focus on issues that are important to the constituents, the citizens in the 6th Congressional District. And frankly, John, I've built more highways and bridges in this part of town than anybody else at this table, than everybody else at this table. I spent a lot of time building highways and roads and bridges when I was county commissioner, when I was mayor, and we need to look at that kind of infrastructure. And I've built water projects in this district. And we need, these are two of the major issues that are important to the citizens in the 6th Congressional. We need more water, certainly, and the federal government certainly has a role. And I think in many respects, the Congress and the federal government has been working at odds with the interests of the citizens of Colorado and the citizens of this district. And then on transportation, there are projects that need to get done and need to be funded. And I'll disagree with Mike on Iraq. We have been in Iraq for 5.5 years. The troops on the ground are doing amazing things, and they have secured the ground. The surge worked, but we need to surge on the political side. We need political engagement by our government.
Let's hold off.
Let's
do Iraq as the very next question, but I want Ted to have an opportunity to weigh in on Tom, and then we'll move forward to Iraq.
You know, I've worked with Tom for years on immigration reform in Colorado. Every bill that I've carried has been probably at the suggestion of Tom, and we've worked hand in hand together to try to change the debate here in Colorado on immigration reform. So on immigration, there won't be any light between our shoulders on immigration. But I think my background, I have a master's in public administration with a concentration in environmental policy and law. I think that Colorado needs to send a spokesperson to Washington, D.C. that will be a strong advocate not only on water policy that I've been championing down at the state legislature, but also on natural resource policy, whether it's oil and gas development to natural and coal development, to fight what I call the radical environmentalists that have pretty much stopped any domestic development of natural resources here in the state of Colorado and through the West. And we need to have somebody that'll go out to Washington, D.C. and advocate not only for Colorado, but for the Western United States and for the citizens of the state of Colorado. When you see gas prices going over $4 a gallon, that's a huge issue. That's a tax increase for the citizens of the 6th Congressional District and for the United States. And we need to have somebody that'll go down there and fight hard against the radical environmentalists that are preventing us from developing our own domestic supplies here in the United States.
Well,
and that's one thing I will champion when I go to Washington.
Go ahead, jump in there, Mike.
You know, one thing that I want to disagree with Steve on the issue of immigration reform is it certainly is a question of national security, and that's important, but it's also a question that concerns the taxpayers of the state of Colorado in this nation. I think there was just a story out with Mayor Hickenlooper having made a commitment to students at, I think it was Cole Middle School, about paying for their college, and it was found that a third of that class was undocumented, i.e. illegal immigrants that the taxpayers are paying for. And so we need to look at it from both points of view, from the taxpayer's point of view in terms of where it impacts them, and also from a national security point of view.
But we'll be more effective if we put immigration reform and border security. We will be more effective with soccer moms. With the average American voter, will be much more effective at actually getting something done on the borders of this country if we put it in the context of national security.
We need to speed this up. We've only got 10 minutes on this section. Again, we're going to go to our webcast only, which is at independenceinstitute.org. Let's jump to Iraq. And what I'm going to try to pull out of you, gentlemen, is what's different? What is the difference between the four of you when it comes to the policy of Iraq? Let's start over with Wil. How do we solve the problem? Do we stay longer? Are you in agreement with our presidential candidate that if we need to stay there for 100 years, we will? What's the answer? I'm going to ask for brevity.
I'm with John McCain. I'm with General Petraeus. And the 25 million Iraqis that are fighting for freedom. I think we have made progress towards stability and security, and I think that the next great challenge for Congress, in addition to oversight of the dollars, which I think I can take my business experience and apply it to that, is going to be economic reform. It's going to be micro lending. It's going to be pushing freedom. It's going to be putting to work the $50 billion in Iraqi oil reserve dollars that are on deposit that we need to invest back into the country.
Let's bring it to Ted over here. Ted, what's different about you and your three competitors when it comes to Iraq?
Well, I think that the main thing that we need to do is promote freedom and liberty over there and show. I think we need to have the president, and I think John McCain will be able to do that, to speak at the bully pulpit about why it's important, that Iraq is an important stronghold for us militarily and strategically, not only for the freedom and liberty of those people and for oil reserves over there, but also for strategically to have a footprint there to provide security for Israel and all of the Middle East countries. It's in our national interest to do that. And I think whenever freedom and liberty is tried, it always works. But I think that the administration had significant problems in their first 3 years there because of the way that they went in there and tried to bring peace through a failed diplomatic policy. My brother served